Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm out with yet another crochet tutorial, and this time I'm going to teach you how to create this super cute wavy crochet stitch. This is something that I haven't shared on my channel yet, and since I'm working on a new project which will actually use this as a panel as well as will have this stitch, of course, I thought it's a perfect opportunity to share this stitch so you can learn it already before I'm finished with the project and have managed to share it. Or if you're watching this video sometime in the future, then perhaps this creation is already live on my channel. But anyway, I thought that this would be a good idea to teach something new, because I haven't done quite a lot of these videos, and besides that, it's super nice stitch. It works very well for different sort of projects, so I'm sure that you will enjoy it as well. And as always, I have made sure that this tutorial is as beginner friendly as possible, but if you feel like I'm going too slow or too fast, then just feel free to adjust the speed of the video and I'm sure that it will help. Or if you have further questions, then just feel free to reach out in the comment section below and I will try to help you from there. But now let's get started. Here are the materials that I will be using. Here I have different shades of blue of 4-ply cotton yarn, and if you're interested in this specific yarn, here are some more specs just so you can check it out. And besides 4-ply cotton, I will also be using mohair blend in also different shades of blue and white. And here are some more specs about this specific yarn that I'm using. And of course, besides yarn, you will also need a crochet hook. For this project I will be using 3.5mm hook, and it will also be handy to have some stitch markers as well as scissors. And here is how this pattern is going to look like once I have added already a couple of rows. So this is what we are going to aim for, but now let's get started. First, I will be starting with this darker blue color, and our first step will be to do some chains, and we will basically have to do multiples of 16 plus 2, and the amount of chains done will determine the width of our panels, so just make sure to do some measurements beforehand to make sure that you are creating the size of this panel that you are actually going for. So let's get started with doing some chains, and for that I'm just grabbing my yarn and starting with a slip knot. So for that I create a loop like this, then I twist it and pull this yarn through the loop to create a knot and also kind of like a bigger loop. And then I can just grab my crochet hook, put this loop on it, and then adjust the size to make sure that it fits the hook size like that. So this is the slip knot, and then we can proceed further with doing some chains, and we just have to do multiples of 16 plus 2. So to do a chain, you just have to grab yarn and pull it through the loop, and then just repeat the process until you have created the amount of chains that you are going for, and just make sure to count along as you are doing this process. Here I have done all the chains that I needed, so now we can proceed further with doing stitches for the first row. And throughout the first row we will be doing single crochets, so let's proceed with that. And our first step basically is to skip the last chain that we did, and then starting from the following one we are starting to do single crochets. And for that we basically just have to go through this chain, then grab yarn and pull it up to have 2 loops on our hook, then yarn over and pull through both loops like this. So this is one single crochet, and then we are just proceeding further with the next chain and doing the same process. So let's do one more together. So going through the chain, grabbing yarn, pulling up to have 2 loops, then yarning over and pulling through both of them like this. So this is how you are doing single crochets, and you basically just have to place one single crochet inside every single chain that you have here until you make it to the very end here. So just go through all of these chains until you reach this point here. Here I have done single crochets inside every single chain that I had, and this is how it looks. So now the first row is completed and we can proceed further with the second row. But before we do so, what I like to do is actually use some stitch markers and place them inside the first and then inside the 16th stitch. So that's what I'm going to do, because it will kind of help me to keep track on all the stitches that I'm doing. However, it's totally optional, and if you feel comfortable or confident enough, it's totally fine to just leave them out. So here I'm just placing one in here, and then from the second stitch I'm starting to count 16, and then in the 16th one I will place one more again, and that's basically how I will do it throughout this row. So I will just proceed with doing that, and if you want you can do it as well, because it helps keeping track once you are like getting busy with this project and just need some extra help in terms of remembering where you have to be. Here I have added all the stitch markers inside every single 16th stitch as well as in the first one, and now we can proceed further with doing stitches for the second row. So for that we first just have to turn or work like this, and then we are just chaining one to get started like that, and this chain of one is not going to count as a stitch. So now we are just proceeding further, and our first step is to do a single crochet inside this first stitch where we have our stitch marker. So I'm just going inside here and doing one single crochet, so like this. So this is our first stitch for the second row, and then we can remove this stitch marker, and I'm just going to place it inside this stitch that we just did, since that's the first one for this second row. And now we are proceeding further with stitches for this second row, and starting from this point all the stitches will be repeating, so just keep that in mind. So our first step is to do a single crochet in this next stitch, so I'm just doing that like this, and then we are chaining one and skipping one. So chaining one and then skipping this following stitch, and in the next one we are doing one half double crochet. So for that you have to yarn over, go through this stitch, grab yarn and pull it up to have 3 loops on your hook, then yarn over and pull through all 3 of them like this. So that is one half double crochet. After that we are again chaining one and skipping one, and then in the following stitch we are doing one double crochet. So for that we are yarning over, going through the stitch like this, then grabbing yarn and pulling it up to have 3 loops on our hook, then yarning over and pulling through 2 like this, yarning over again and pulling through remaining 2 like that. So that is one double crochet, and after that once again we are just chaining one and skipping one, and then in the following stitch now we have to do one treble crochet. So for that we first have to yarn over twice like this, then we are going inside this stitch and grabbing yarn and pulling it up to have 4 loops on our hook, then we are yarning over and pulling through 2 like this, yarning over again and pulling through the next 2, and then yarning over for the last time and pulling through the remaining 2 like this. So this is one treble crochet, then we are chaining one and again skipping one, and in the next stitch we are just doing another treble crochet, so yarning over twice and then yarning over and pulling through pairs of 2 like this. So now we are basically halfway through, so now we just have to mirror everything on the other side, and first we are just starting with chaining one, skipping one, and then doing double crochet in the next stitch like this, then again chaining one and skipping one, and then in the next stitch we are doing one half double crochet like this, and then once again chaining one, skipping one, and then in the next stitch we are doing one single crochet like that, and then in the stitch where we have stitch marker we are again doing one single crochet like this. So now we have completed these first steps that we will have to repeat moving forward, and I can remove this stitch marker and place it on top of the single crochet that we just did, because in that way it just helps me to track my progress and to memorize what I have to do once I reach it. But now that we are here, we are again just basically repeating all of these steps that we just did, starting from the stitch after the stitch marker. So let's just do it one more time together, this time a little bit faster. So starting with one single crochet, then chaining one and skipping one and doing one half double crochet like this, then chaining one and skipping one and doing one double crochet like that, and then we have two treble crochets, so yarning over twice and then just pulling through pairs of two. So this is one treble crochet, and then we are adding just one more after we have skipped another stitch like this, and then after that we just have double crochet. So again, mirroring all the stitches also on the other side, chaining one, skipping one, and then we have half double crochet like that, and then chaining one, skipping one, and we have one single crochet in the next, and then single crochet in the stitch with stitch marker without skipping anything like this. So now we have repeated that for another time. We are inside the stitch where we have stitch marker, so we are just removing it and placing inside the stitch that we just did like that. So this is the whole process for this second row. So all you have to do is just repeat these steps until you reach the very end of this row, and that's where I'm going to meet you back again to explain the following steps for the third row. So here second row is finalized and this is how it looks. So now we can move further and proceed with the third row, which is going to be a very easy one. So first for that we just have to flip or work on the other side like this, and then we just have to chain one to get started, and this chain of one is not going to count as a stitch, so just keep that in mind. And now throughout this third row we are basically just going to do single crochets on top of every single stitch that we have, as well as on top of these chains that we have here. So starting from the first one, I'm just adding a single crochet in there, and then also I'm moving this stitch marker again on top of this first stitch that we just did like this, and then again just moving further with the next stitch and also adding a single crochet in there like that. And now we have reached this chain. So here you can actually choose if you want to do your single crochet inside the chain like this, or you can also, to make things easier, you can just do it over the chain like that, so without going inside the chain like this, just completing this single crochet inside this gap. So that's totally up to you if you want it to be a little bit easier or not, but the final look is basically going to be very much the same. But otherwise just continue doing stitches for this third row and just add one single crochet on top of every single stitch that we have, as well as every single chain that you have in between the stitches. And as you are doing these stitches, you can also count along to make sure that you have 16 stitches from one stitch marker to the other. And now here I have completed this third row and this is how it looks like. So now we can proceed further with the fourth one. But before we do so, we are actually going to switch colors. I will be using this one, and basically throughout this pattern we will be switching colors after every 3 rows. So let's do it together for the first time. So here where I have my last stitch, I actually haven't completed it all the way through. I have left it with all the loops on my hook with just last yarn over to be done. So I'm just leaving it like this, and then I'm just grabbing my new color that I'm going to use, which is this lighter blue. And then here where I have my existing yarn, I'm just tying this new color around it and making a secure knot like this. So now this yarn is attached to the one that we were using, and we are just pulling this knot closer to our hook, so basically right next to our hook where we have it, like this. And then I'm just double checking that it's secure enough. And in this way we are switching colors, so now we can also complete this very last stitch, and for that I'm just using my new color, so yarning over and completing the stitch with that one, like this. So now we have switched our colors, and we can also cut off yarn like this old color because we won't need it anymore. So I'm just cutting it off like this, and now we can proceed further with the fourth row. So for that, as always, we are just turning our work like this, and then to get started we just have to chain one like that, and this chain of one is not going to count as a stitch, so just remember that. And then starting from the first stitch we are going to do again single crochets, but this time we will be doing them inside the back loops. So instead of going through these both loops, we will only go through this back loop here, like that. So I'm just starting with this first stitch and completing a single crochet by going through the back loop only, like this. So here I have done it a couple of times. Again, I'm just remembering about my stitch marker. I'm going to place it here inside the very first stitch that we just did together, like that. But otherwise we are now just continuing with single crochets in the back loops only. So this is how it looks so far, so just keep on doing that until you reach the end of this row. Here I have completed this fourth row, and this is how it looks like. So now we can proceed with the fifth one, but actually what I'm going to do, at least for my panel, is that for every other of these middle stitches in between single crochets, I will be switching to the mohair blend. So again, I'm just going to attach new yarn to this last stitch and then proceed with that one, so following the same process that I did before. And then I'm just finalizing this last stitch with that one, like this. And now we can continue further with the fifth round. So for that, first I'm just turning my work like this, and then we have to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3 and 4, and this chain of 4 is not going to count as a stitch, so again just remember that. And after that, once this is done, we can proceed further with the first stitch, and inside this first one we just have to do 1 treble crochet. So again, yarning over twice and going through this stitch, and then pulling the yarn through pairs of 2, like this. And since this is our first stitch of this round, I'm again taking my stitch marker and putting it inside this very first stitch that I have here, like that. So now, starting from this treble crochet and also including it, all the stitches that will be done in between these stitch markers will be repeated later on. But now we can proceed further with the next stitches, and first we just have to chain 1 and skip 1, and then in the next space we are just doing 1 double crochet. So I'm just going through this stitch and placing 1 double crochet inside there, like this. And then after that we are again chaining 1, skipping 1 and placing 1 half double crochet inside the next stitch, like this. Then after that we again just have to chain 1 and skip 1, and now we have to do 3 single crochets, 1 in each stitch. So I'm placing 1 in here, like that, then another one in the next one, like that, and then third one right after, like this. So we have skipped 1 and then done 3 single crochets in a row, and then after that we are kind of again repeating everything on the other side. So first we are chaining 1, skipping 1, and then doing 1 half double crochet inside the next stitch, like that. Then again chaining 1, skipping 1 and doing 1 double crochet in the next one, like this. And then we are again chaining 1, skipping 1, and now we are doing 1 treble crochet in the next stitch after we have skipped 1, like that. and then we again just have to chain one, skip one, and now we are doing one treble crochet here where we have stitch marker. So I'm just yarning over twice and placing a treble crochet inside the space where we have stitch marker, like this. So these are the steps that we have to kind of repeat. And now, since we have placed a stitch here where we have this stitch marker, we can put it in the stitch, like on top of this treble crochet that we just did in here. And now we can proceed further with this part in between stitch markers. So since we have this treble crochet already done, which basically counts as this one, we are now proceeding further with double crochet. So first we are just chaining one and skipping one, and then doing one double crochet in here, then chain one, skip one, and do one half double crochet in the next one, like that. Then we are chaining one, skipping one, and doing 3 single crochets one after another. So 1, 2, and then also the third one, like that. And then chain one, skip one, and place a half double crochet in the following stitch, like that. Chain one, skip one, and double crochet. So I'm doing that like this, and then we have 2 treble crochets. First chain one, skip one, then we are placing 1 treble crochet inside here, and then chain one, skip one, and 1 treble crochet here where we have the stitch marker. So I'm just doing that in there like this. So this is how it looks so far with these stitches that we have just done. And now again I'm just removing this stitch marker and placing it inside here. But otherwise these stitches and these steps in between these stitch markers are the same, so just keep on repeating until you reach the very end of this row, and that's where I'm going to meet you back again. And here I have also completed this row, and this is how it looks. And here at the end you should just end it with 2 treble crochets. So here is one, then we are skipping one, and then on the very last stitch we again have this treble crochet. And as you might have noticed, during this row we are basically doing the same stitches that we did during the second row. It's just that they are kind of like in different positions, otherwise it's exactly the same. But now here I am at the very end of this row, and now actually I will be switching back to this color that I used before. So again I'm just going one step back in completing this very last stitch, and I'm just going to attach this color back that I just used before this row, and we can move further with the following row. So first we just have to turn our work again like this, and then to get started with the 6th row we first just have to chain one, which doesn't count as a stitch, and then we are just doing the same thing as we did during the 3rd row. We are just going to place 1 single crochet inside every single stitch starting from the first one. So here I have added 1 on top of this treble crochet from the previous row, basically the last stitch, and in there I'm just placing my stitch marker to remember that this is actually the very first stitch of this 6th row, like that. And then we are just proceeding with adding 1 single crochet on top of every single stitch and every single chain. And here, as I mentioned before, if it's simpler, you can, instead of going through the chain, you can actually go through the space, which I'm going to do in this case because it's quite tricky to work with such a tight yarn or such a tricky yarn. So here I'm just adding single crochets on top of the stitches, and then inside these gaps that we have where we skip the stitches, like that. Otherwise it's going to look basically the same as it would if I would be going through the chains. But now just add 1 single crochet inside every single stitch as well as inside every single chain, and do that until you reach the very end of this row. And as you are doing these stitches, just count along to make sure that you have 16 from one stitch marker to the other, and continue doing that until the end of this row where I'm going to meet you back again. And here I am done with the 6th row, and this is how it looks like. So now at the end of this row, since we are done with our 3rd row, I'm again going to introduce new color. So this last stitch is not finished fully, and I will be adding this white yarn. So again, in the same way, I'm just attaching it by tying it to the existing yarn, and then we can complete this stitch by using our new color like this. And now we can move further with the 7th row. So for that, first I'm just turning my work like this, and basically we are going to do the same thing as we did during the 4th row. So we are starting with chaining 1, which doesn't count as a stitch, and then we are placing single crochets inside the back loops of the stitches from the previous row. So basically the same thing. So here I have already done a couple of them like that, and then we just have to remember to move this stitch marker inside the first stitch that we did starting for this 7th row like that. But otherwise it's the same process, just place 1 single crochet inside every single stitch from the previous row, and do that in the back loops only, and go all the way through until you reach the very end of this row here. And that's where I'm going to meet you back again to explain the next steps that we have to do for this pattern. So here row 7 is finalized, and this is how it looks. So now if I turn it on the other side to proceed working on the next row, basically what we would have to do is just keep on repeating rows starting from row 2 to 7. So to add length to this panel, you would basically just have to keep on repeating these rows. And now for the row 8, I would just have to repeat row 2nd. So literally the same steps that I did here. So just continue with doing that, repeating these rows from row 2 to 7 to add basically length to your panel. And you're more than welcome to mix and match different colors as I'm doing it here after every 3 rows. And also you're more than welcome to use different types of yarn as I did here. So just feel free to do that. Otherwise, just keep on adding extra rows to increase length of these panels, and do that until you have reached your desired length. And here I have already completed 1 panel, and this is how it looks. So as you can see, after doing several rows of this type of pattern and mixing and matching different colors as well as different materials, the final result turns out to be super cute. So feel free to follow along and add length and create something similar. So that was it from me today. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that this tutorial is going to be useful for you in case you are planning to work on something similar or simply wanted to learn something new within crochet. But as I mentioned during the video, you're more than welcome to mix and match different colors, use different types of yarn, because the outcome will really look super nice. But otherwise, if you did enjoy this video, then please give me a big thumbs up, and if you're new here, then please subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye!